Hello, my name is Carey and welcome to Vanilla Martini today, where I talk about my past. So in yesterday's video I was all like, oh, I have no ideas for videos. Do you want to hear about what my life was like before? And a bunch of people were like, yes. You lived in France? I didn't know you lived in France. What? So I'm just going to give you a brief-ish backstory of my life. I was born in a tiny town in Burgundy in central France called Chalon-sur-Saône, and I lived there until I was 5, and when I was 5 I moved to Paris. I then lived in Paris for the next 8.5-ish years, and I was 13 when I moved to the United States, where I still live in Colorado Springs because that's where my mother grew up and that's where all of her side of the family is. So even though I was born in France and I do have a French birth certificate as well as an American birth certificate, I don't have my citizenship because both my parents are American, and it's really annoying because it would make it so much easier for me to move there if I decide to move back there if I had my citizenship. And I honestly, I'm on the fence right now about whether I want to move back to France permanently or even short term. I'm trying to make that decision this summer, actually. I think if I did have my citizenship, I would up and move there right now, even just for a little bit, to figure out if I did want to stay there long term. But because I don't have my citizenship, I have to be a lot more careful about the decision because it would involve a lot more complicated paperwork to get me to be there legally for long term, and oh, it's frustrating. Anyway, so my parents are both American and we were there as missionaries, which makes me a missionary kid. Hooray! Now, a lot of missionary kids or military kids will go to a local international school when they're living overseas, but I didn't. I always went to French public school. So other than with my immediate family and the occasional visitors and then our other missionary colleagues, well, I never spoke English. I, in public and at school and everything, always spoke French. So yes, I speak fluent French. The move when I was 5, I don't remember a whole lot about that or it really being a big deal to me at the time. I didn't really know what was going on. But the move when I was 13 to the US was, and still is to this day, the hardest thing that I have ever gone through, and there are a lot of aspects of it that I still have not completely dealt with and like processed and figured out how to apply it to my life now and to my future without it being always emotionally crippling when I think about it. I mean, first of all, I never saw it coming. In my head, I was a French girl who happened to have American parents, and I was always gonna live in France, and particularly in Paris. I still love Paris. It's the only place that's ever felt really like a home to me, and even though it's different now because I haven't lived there in a while, it's still the closest thing that I have to a place that feels like home, the place that I just love with my whole heart. I love it so much. I love Paris. So anyway, this move completely turned my world upside down, and when my parents first told us we were supposed to still have a little over a year before we actually had to move, that, you know, so that was a year to prepare things physically but also prepare ourselves and get used to the idea of it. But about a month after they told us, the mission that they were with, basically what they said is, it's too expensive, you need to move this summer. So we pretty much had a month to get our entire lives together and go to something that we had only known as a summer vacation before. I mean, you can probably hear it in the way I'm talking about it now still, like how hard that was for me, and looking back, I wish I had had that year because I think it would have been less devastating because I would have gotten used to the idea. Over a year I would have been like, okay, I'm moving to the US and I might not want to, but at least I'm used to the idea now. But I didn't get that luxury, and on top of that, I basically had no summer that year because school ends in like very beginning of July in France, and then it starts like mid-August in the US. So my summer was basically like 2 weeks in which I was like, oh, we live in America and we're trying to find a house and what is going on? And it was weird at first too, because even though I knew it's like, oh, we live in America now, and I was going to school, because I'd always just gone to the US over the summer as a short-term thing, that's just what it felt like to me at first. Like even though intellectually I knew I'm not going back to France, that's not how it felt. So anyway, I have lived in the US for almost 6 years now, and while I'm pretty much over culture shock, although there's occasionally things that I'm like, oh, that's so American, I still miss France a lot, and the struggle of whether I belong here or in France or neither is something that I think I will probably always deal with for the rest of my life. I think that's gonna be it for today. That's sort of the shortened version of my cross-cultural life, and I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye!